She married a millionaire CEO just to protect her brother. But in court, his confession stunned everyone. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us get back to our main character. The rain had not stopped for hours. Seattle's sky hung heavy and low, washing the city in a sheet of silver that blurred lights into trembling halos. It was close to 10 at night when Maya Ortiz pulled into the parking lot outside Lumen Field, her Lyft app still glowing on the cracked screen. She turned it off and exhaled, the breath fogging against the windshield. The stadium lights flickered through the drizzle, illuminating rows of cars left from the memorial service. Adrian Hale was gone. The city called her the woman who built hope from water. But to Maya, she was the stranger who once bought her coffee at a community center 3 years ago and quietly paid her tuition bill when she was about to drop out. Maya had not known how to thank her. Now, it was too late. She stepped out into the rain, clutching a yellow CPS folder to her chest. The paper inside had started to curl at the edges, an official warning that her housing was unstable. One more failed inspection, and her 16-year-old brother Diego would be removed from her care. Her sneakers squished against the puddled asphalt as she hurried toward a line of parked cars. A man stood alone beside a black SUV, his shoulders broad under a soaked gray suit. His face was familiar from the photographs on the memorial screen. Adrian Hale, Elena's brother, the CEO of Harbor Labs. The media called him the cold visionary, a man who designed floating homes while refusing to live in one himself. He was holding a stainless steel water bottle, staring into the dark as if daring the rain to stop. Maya hesitated, not sure why her feet carried her closer. Maybe it was the exhaustion, maybe the hollow silence after grief. She had no umbrella. Her hair stuck to her face, the file trembling in her hands. When she reached him, a gust of wind flipped the folder open, scattering the papers across the wet concrete. Adrian bent down at once, collecting them silently. His fingers brushed the seal of the Department of Child Protective Services. His eyes, sharp and steady, lifted to meet hers. "You are her caseworker?" he asked. "No," Maya said, her voice breaking. "I am her sister." The word felt too fragile for the rain. He studied her face, the soaked letterhead, the trembling in her jaw. "They are threatening to take your brother," he said quietly, "because you do not have a stable address." She nodded, swallowing hard. "They do not care that I teach or that I drive nights to cover rent. They only care about a zip code." For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Adrian unscrewed the cap of his bottle, set it down on the hood, and said something that made her forget the sound of the rain. "Marry me," he said. Maya froze. She laughed once, a sharp, disbelieving sound. "Excuse me?" "Marry me," he repeated. "It would be a contract, 90 days. You would have a stable address to keep your brother. I would have the image of a family before my custody hearing for my niece, Luna. No romance, no expectations, just legal structure." The words were absurd, cold, almost offensive. But his tone was steady, the kind that comes from someone who has already measured the risk and chosen it anyway. Maya stared at him, the rain sliding down her face. "You do not even know me." "I know enough," he said. "You were one of the people my sister mentored. She trusted you." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small blue key, and placed it on the lid of the water bottle. "This is the house in Ballard. It has an extra room. Think about it." Maya's heart pounded so loudly it drowned out the rain. It was impossible, ridiculous, maybe even wrong. But she could not ignore the chill in her chest when she remembered Diego's voice on the phone that afternoon. "They said they might take me, Maya. If they do, it is not your fault." She looked at the key, shining against the silver steel, and at the man who offered it without blinking. The city lights flickered behind him like a warning and a promise all at once. Was this madness or mercy? The storm hissed around them, the stadium echoing with the last whisper of applause from a ceremony that had already ended. Maya picked up the key. 3 months, she said. "But my brother stays with me." Adrian nodded once, almost as if he had expected her answer. "Deal." And in that strange, rain-soaked parking lot under a sky that had forgotten how to stop crying, a contract marriage was born. No one watching them that night could have imagined that it would turn into the kind of story people would still argue about. Was it love, desperation, or the last good thing two broken people could build together? The next morning, the city looked washed clean, as if the rain had taken last night's madness with it. But inside Maya's small studio apartment in Rainier Valley, the air felt heavy. The yellow CPS folder sat open on the kitchen counter like a threat. Diego strummed his guitar on the couch, pretending not to notice her pacing back and forth. The morning light cut through the blinds, landing on a stack of unpaid bills and the eviction notice taped to the door. Rent would go up by 18% next month. Her teaching position at Seattle Central had just been cut due to budget reductions, and Lyft had sent a push notification telling her she had reached her weekly driving limit for rest hours. It felt like the world was closing in from every side. Maya turned the key Adrian had given her over and over in her hand, the blue paint chipped along the edge. The events of last night replayed like a fever dream. The rain, the grief, his calm eyes when he said, "Marry me." What kind of man made such an offer to a stranger? And what kind of woman even considered saying yes? "Are they coming today?" Diego asked quietly. "Next week," Maya said, forcing a smile that did not reach her eyes. "They just want to make sure everything is stable." He nodded, but his voice trembled. "If they move me again, I am not going." Maya froze. The last time they had been separated, she was 12 and he was 5. She could still hear the sound of her small suitcase scraping against the wooden steps of a foster home. No child should remember that sound. She sat beside him and placed her hand on his shoulder. "I will not let that happen again," she said. Diego handed her a folded piece of paper. "I made this for you." It was a hand-drawn birthday card, bright with marker colors and uneven lines. In the center, he had written in big block letters, "Family equals choice." Maya pressed her lips together, fighting the sting in her eyes. That simple phrase hit harder than any sermon or self-help book. Her phone buzzed with a new email. "Adjunct contracts will not be renewed next semester." Another door closing. Another piece of control slipping away. She looked at the clock. 9:47 a.m. She had to make a decision. The blue key was still on the counter, glinting under the dull light. She picked it up, felt its weight, and whispered to herself, 3 months. By noon, she stood in front of Harbor Labs, a sleek glass tower overlooking Elliott Bay. The lobby smelled of polished marble and fresh coffee. She felt small in her thrift store coat and worn sneakers. The receptionist gave her a polite, confused smile when she said, "I am here to see Mr. Hale." Adrian appeared moments later, perfectly composed in a dark suit, as if last night's rain had never touched him. "You came," he said simply. "I am here to make sure you understand my conditions," she replied. "My brother stays with me. No one tells him what to say, where to go, or how to live." He nodded without hesitation. Understood. They rode the elevator in silence. Through the glass walls, the city stretched below them, blue-gray water, ferry boats moving like quiet thoughts. Maya's stomach twisted. She had entered another world, one made of control, precision, and wealth so clean, it could erase entire stories like hers. In the conference room, Adrian's lawyer laid out a 9-page document. The pages smelled faintly of ink and new beginnings. Maya scanned the clauses, her pulse racing faster with each line. Separate bedrooms. Appear together at 5 public events. No emotional expectations. Confidentiality required. Termination after 90 days unless extended by mutual consent. It was a script for pretending. But at the bottom, she noticed one blank space under the legal conditions. She took a pen, hesitated, then wrote in her own small, steady handwriting, "If any action harms a child, this contract is void immediately." The lawyer blinked but said nothing. Adrian watched quietly, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he reached for his pen, a sleek black fountain pen with silver trim, and placed it in her hand. "This one belonged to Elena," he said softly. Maya stared at the pen for a long moment, then signed her name. The sound of the nib scratching paper felt heavier than thunder. Adrian added his signature beside hers. The contract was done. For the first time, Maya looked up and met his gaze without flinching. "You really believe this will work?" she asked. "I believe in structure," he said. "And in keeping promises." Outside, a ferry horn echoed across the bay. The sound lingered in the silence that followed. Maya gathered her things. The key and the copy of the contract clutched to her chest. She was not sure if she had saved her family or just sold her freedom for 90 days. As she stepped out into the sunlight, her heart whispered a question she could not answer yet. What kind of story begins with a signature? The next day unfolded with a kind of quiet disbelief. Maya had woken up in a house that did not smell like her life. The Ballard home stood on a narrow canal, all glass and soft wood, sunlight spilling through wide windows that looked out on the water. Every surface gleamed. Every item seemed to know its place. It was beautiful and completely foreign. She stood barefoot in the kitchen, still wearing her old sweatshirt, staring at the silver coffee machine that looked more complicated than any classroom equipment she had ever used. A handwritten note sat beside it. "Groceries are delivered every Tuesday. The guest room is yours. Welcome home." The signature below it was firm, precise Adrian Hale. Diego ran up the stairs with the kind of awe only a 16-year-old could have. "Maya, this place has a dock. Like an actual dock." Quote. She smiled faintly. "Try not to fall in. We cannot afford hospital bills right now." He rolled his eyes, but she could tell he was happy. For the first time in months, he looked like a kid who could breathe. At 11 o'clock, a woman in her 40s knocked on the front door. She introduced herself as Claire Thompson, the company's head of public relations. Her tone was brisk, but not unkind. "Mr. Hale asked me to help you prepare for the upcoming appearances. It will be an adjustment." Cook. An adjustment was an understatement. The next few hours turned into what Claire jokingly called crash course in corporate grace. Maya learned how to shake hands with confidence, how to hold a champagne glass without looking nervous, and how to walk in heels without clicking too loud on hardwood floors. Maya tried to keep up, half amused, half horrified. "If I can survive teaching composition to freshmen who text during class, I can survive this," she muttered. Claire smirked. Confidence is 90% of social perception. The other 10 is lighting. By evening, Maya was exhausted. She stepped outside to the balcony overlooking the canal. The city lights shimmered on the water, and for the first time, she allowed herself to exhale. Behind her, the door slid open. Adrian stepped out, holding 2 mugs of coffee. His suit jacket was gone, his sleeves were rolled up. He looked less like a CEO and more like someone trying to remember how to be human. "You handled today better than most people would," he said. "I am not most people," Maya replied. He gave a small smile. "I know." They stood there in silence, the air carrying the faint scent of rain and sea salt. When she turned toward him, she noticed the faint lines under his eyes, the weariness that never made it into the glossy magazine articles. He followed her gaze and looked almost embarrassed. "It has been a long week," he said quietly. "For both of us." He nodded. Then, unexpectedly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small folder. "This is the event schedule. 5 appearances. We can handle them one by one. And remember, the story is simple. We met through Elena's community project, and the connection grew. Keep it consistent." Maya took the folder and nodded, though a part of her bristled at the rehearsed lie. That night she could not sleep. The contract sat on the nightstand beside her, next to the blue key and the silver pen. She kept replaying the day in her head, the training, the polite smiles, the way Adrian seemed to live in constant restraint. Everything about him screamed control, and yet something in his eyes hinted at loneliness deeper than logic could explain. The moonlight cut across the room, glinting off the framed photo of Elena that hung in the hallway. Maya whispered into the dark, "You really trusted him, did you not?" The house did not answer. Morning came again too soon. Adrian was already in the kitchen, reading the news on a tablet. "We have our first event tonight," he said without looking up. "A charity gala for clean water initiatives." Maya poured herself coffee and nodded. "I will be ready." He glanced at her, as if assessing whether she meant it. "You will be fine. Just be yourself." She gave a small laugh. "That is what I am afraid of." Quote. Outside, gulls cried over the canal, and the reflection of the rising sun rippled across the water like liquid gold. Maya looked down at her own hands, the faint ink stain from signing the contract still marking her skin. Somewhere deep inside, she could not tell if that mark was a promise or a warning. If you were in Maya's place, would you sign a marriage contract just to save your family? The night of the gala came faster than Maya expected. The Ballard house buzzed with quiet preparation. Claire arrived before sunset, carrying 2 garment bags and a box of silver jewelry. "Your first public appearance," she announced, her tone half coach, half commander. "Remember, posture is language." Maya stood in front of the mirror, uncertain. The deep blue gown shimmered like water under the light, elegant but heavy. "It feels like it belongs to someone else," she said softly. Claire adjusted the straps with quick, precise hands. "That is the point. Tonight, you are someone else." Downstairs, Adrian was already waiting by the car, black tie in place, calm as ever. When he looked up and saw her on the stairs, he paused for the briefest second. "You look ready," he said. Maya smiled faintly. "You mean unrecognizable?" He did not argue. Instead, he offered his arm, and for the first time, she took it. The gesture felt strange, like borrowing a scene from another life. The gala was held at a glass pavilion near the waterfront. Inside, the sound of strings floated above the low hum of conversation. Reporters and investors filled the room. Adrian guided Maya through the crowd, introducing her as someone close to Elena's community work. It was rehearsed, but not false. Maya tried to remember every cue Claire had taught her. Smile softly, make eye contact, tilt your head when listening. Still, her pulse quickened each time someone mentioned the word marriage. Halfway through the evening, a waiter passed by with trays of soup. Maya reached for one, and the spoon clattered against the plate. A few nearby guests turned their heads. Her face flushed. Adrian leaned slightly toward her and whispered, "Just eat like you do at home." It was meant as reassurance, but the irony hit her so hard she almost laughed. Home, she thought. What a word to throw around so easily. Later, while Adrian spoke with a senator about the upcoming water pilot program, Maya drifted toward the edge of the room. A young journalist approached her, recorder in hand. "Mrs. Hale," he began, "many people are curious, how did you and your husband meet?" For a moment, she froze. Then, the memory of Elena's smile flashed through her mind, and she found her voice. "We met through her foundation," she said. "She believed water connects people. Maybe she was right." Quote. The journalist smiled, satisfied, and moved on. Maya exhaled in relief. As the night deepened, Adrian rejoined her by the balcony overlooking the bay. The city lights shimmered across the water like fireflies trapped under glass. "You handled that well," he said. "I was terrified," she admitted. "That makes two of us." The confession surprised her. He looked away quickly, pretending to study the skyline. "Public events are easier when there is purpose behind them," he said. "Without it, it is just noise." She turned to him, curious. "Then why do you keep doing it?" He hesitated. "Because if I do not, the people who care about profit will speak louder than the people who care about water." For the first time, Maya saw the weight he carried, the endless battle between ethics and money, idealism and reality. It made her anger soften, just a little. The drive home was quiet. Diego had fallen asleep on the couch, guitar beside him, the television humming low. Maya covered him with a blanket before turning to Adrian. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For letting him stay," she replied. He nodded. "He belongs here as much as anyone." Maya looked at him, the man who had turned her life upside down, in a single sentence. "Sometimes," she said, "I think you are doing all this for your sister." Adrian looked down at the floor, the corner of his mouth tightening. "Maybe I am. Or maybe she taught me to do something even when it hurts." Quote. Outside, rain began again, soft and steady against the windows. Maya stood there, the hem of her gown brushing the floor, unsure whether she was stepping deeper into a lie or something that was slowly beginning to feel true. The following week, the second public appearance arrived sooner than Maya had hoped. It was a press conference at the Duwamish River dock, where Harbor Labs was launching its pilot project for floating homes. The morning air carried a sharp chill, and the sky hung heavy with the smell of rain. Workers in bright vests moved in the background, securing solar panels and buoyant platforms. Reporters crowded near the stage, microphones glinting under the pale Sunday. Maya stood beside Adrian, a clipboard in her hand, trying to look composed. The sound of cameras clicking filled the air like a storm of insects. Claire whispered reminders from the sidelines. "Smile, but not too wide. Let Adrian lead." Copped. Adrian began his speech with his usual precision-measured tone, careful phrasing. "Harbor Labs believes innovation means inclusion," he said. "Every family deserves safety, regardless of income." The crowd nodded politely. But then a voice broke through from the back, a young male reporter holding up his phone, already live-streaming. "Mr. Hale," he called, "people are saying this project is just a publicity stunt to push low-income families out of the city and onto the water. Is this about helping people or hiding them?" The question hung in the air, sharp as glass. Adrian's jaw tightened. He opened his mouth to respond, ready to defend himself with numbers and statistics. But before he could speak, Maya stepped forward. Her fingers trembled slightly, but her voice carried clear across the dock. "I grew up in foster homes," she said. "I moved every few months, not because my family did anything wrong, but because we could not afford to stay in one place. Stability decides everything, whether a child feels safe, whether siblings stay together, whether they believe in tomorrow. So if this project gives even one family a legal address that keeps them from being torn apart, then it is not publicity. It is dignity." The dock fell silent. For a heartbeat, the only sound was the slow lap of water against the floating platforms. Then, someone started clapping. Another joined. Within seconds, the entire group of reporters and workers applauded. Cameras turned to Maya, flashes bursting like small explosions. Adrian looked at her not as a CEO or a strategist, but as a man seeing someone rewrite the story for both of them. His expression softened, pride flickering behind his calm exterior. When the conference ended, Claire approached with wide eyes. "That was not in the script," she whispered. Maya smiled faintly. Maybe it should have been. In the car ride back, silence filled the space between them. The city blurred past, gray and glistening from the drizzle. Adrian finally spoke, his tone quieter than usual. "You changed the direction of the entire campaign today." "I was just telling the truth," she replied. He turned to look at her. "That is why it worked." For the first time, she noticed something different in his voice, something almost warm. Back at the Ballard house, Diego was waiting with his sketchbook open. "I saw you on the news," he said, grinning. "They called you the voice of the river." Maya laughed, half embarrassed. "Please tell me that is not trending." "It is," Diego said proudly. "And everyone in my class thinks my sister is a superhero." She reached out and ruffled his hair. "Superheroes pay rent, just like everyone else." Later that night, Maya sat on the balcony, watching the reflection of the city lights on the dark water. Adrian joined her, carrying 2 mugs of cocoa. He handed one to her and said softly, "You did not have to speak up today, but you did. Why?" Maya looked at the steam rising from her cup. "Because sometimes people like us do not get a microphone, and when we finally do, we cannot waste it." He nodded, studying her face for a long moment before saying, "You remind me of her Elena." Maya smiled faintly, the ache of memory softening. "Then maybe that means we are both still learning how to keep her alive." Quote. Inside the house, Diego's guitar played softly, drifting through the open door. The sound wrapped around them like warmth. For the first time, Maya did not feel like a guest in this house. She felt just barely like she belonged. A few nights later, the rain returned. It came softly at first, brushing against the windows like a whisper, then heavier, until it drowned out the faint strumming of Diego's guitar. The Ballard house glowed warm against the gray sky. Maya stood in the kitchen, stirring cocoa in a chipped mug she had found in one of the cupboards. The mug had a crack running down the side, sealed neatly with clear glue. On the bottom, faded initials read E.H. She smiled faintly. Elena Hale. When she stepped onto the balcony, Adrian was already there, sleeves rolled up, hands gripping the railing as he looked out over the water. The reflection of the city danced across his face. "You are still awake," he said without turning. "So are you." She handed him the second mug. "I found this in the back cabinet. Your sister's?" He nodded slowly. "She used to drink from that mug every night when she worked late," said the crack made it more human. Maya laughed softly. She was right. Perfect things are boring. They stood side by side, the sound of rain wrapping around them like a secret. After a while, Adrian spoke again, his voice lower now. "The custody hearing for Luna is next week." Maya turned toward him. "Are you ready?" He gave a short laugh that was not really a laugh. "No one is ever ready to fight family. My cousin Victoria has the advantage. She knows how to look flawless in court. To her, appearances mean victory. She cannot win just because she looks the part. You would be surprised how often she does." He paused, staring at the dark water. "She told the board that I am unfit, that I hide behind work because I cannot handle emotion. She might not be wrong about that." Quote. Maya looked at him carefully. "She is wrong about one thing. People who cannot feel do not build things that save lives." He glanced at her, his eyes reflecting both gratitude and disbelief. "You make it sound easy." "It is not easy," she said quietly, "but it is not impossible either." For a long time neither spoke. The rain softened again, turning the canal surface into ripples of silver. Then Diego appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. "Maya," he murmured, half asleep, "I left your birthday card on the table." She smiled. "Thank you, kiddo. Go back to bed." When he disappeared upstairs, Adrian looked at her curiously. "Birthday?" "Tomorrow," she said, shrugging. "I stopped counting after 25. He set his mug down and disappeared inside for a moment. When he returned, he held a small box wrapped in plain paper. "I was going to give this to you after the gala next week, but since we are here..." Maya opened it carefully. Inside was a silver necklace with a tiny blue key charm the same color as the real key he had given her that first night. "I wanted you to have your own version," he said quietly. "Something that says this place is yours, even if it started as mine." Her throat tightened. "Thank you," she whispered. He looked away, as if unsure what to do with the silence that followed. "You deserve stability, Maya, and Diego deserves peace. That is all this was ever meant to be." She studied his face, the faint crease between his brows, the careful distance he tried to maintain. "Do you always keep everything inside, Adrian?" His eyes flickered. "It is safer that way." "Safer does not mean better." He did not respond. Instead, he turned back toward the water. For a moment, she thought he would retreat again into that silence he wore like armor. But then he said, almost to himself, "When my sister died, I promised I would protect what she built. I just did not realize that promise would turn into a prison." Maya reached out, resting her hand lightly on his arm. "Maybe prisons only stay locked if you hold the key yourself." He looked down at her hand, then at the blue key charm glinting softly in her palm. The moment lingered, fragile, wordless, real. Somewhere in the distance, a ferry horn echoed across the bay. It felt like the world exhaling. Maya took a sip of her cocoa and smiled faintly. Do you believe love can grow from something that started as an agreement? Adrian turned to her, rainlight flickering in his eyes. Ask me again when this contract ends. And for the first time, neither of them wanted that day to come. The week of the custody hearing arrived, and with it came the first real storm of the season. Wind pushed the rain sideways across the windows of the Ballard house, rattling the frames like nervous hearts. Inside, the morning light was pale and uneasy. Maya stood at the kitchen counter, reviewing lesson plans she no longer taught, trying to focus on anything except what waited ahead. Adrian paced the living room, phone pressed to his ear. Every few seconds he said short, tense words to his legal team. Yes, no statements yet. Keep it sealed. His voice was all business, but his eyes betrayed fatigue. The television murmured in the background, the local news looping clips from the Duwamish press event. Maya's name flashed briefly across the screen, community advocate praised for emotional speech. She turned the volume down, embarrassed. Then the phone buzzed again, but this time Adrian's expression changed. The color drained from his face. What is it? Maya asked. He hesitated, jaw tight. Someone leaked part of the marriage contract. Her stomach dropped. Leaked? How? Victoria, he said flatly. She sent it to a few reporters. They are spinning it as a PR stunt, contract marriage to win public sympathy. Maya felt heat rise in her chest. So they think we faked everything? That is exactly what they think, Adrian said. And worse, the board is calling an emergency ethics review. Gavai. Within hours, her phone began to buzz non-stop notifications, headlines, messages from old classmates she had not heard from in years. Is it true? Did you marry him for money? By afternoon, a CPS officer called. We just need to verify some things about your current living situation, the woman said politely. Too politely. Given recent media attention, we may need to reassess Diego's placement. When the call ended, Maya's hands were shaking. They are coming again, she whispered. Adrian looked up from his laptop, his expression hardening. They cannot take him, not because of this. Public opinion does not care about truth, she said bitterly. You should know that better than anyone. For a moment, neither spoke. Rain hammered the glass. Somewhere upstairs, Diego's guitar stopped mid-song. Late that evening, Adrian drove them to the downtown courthouse to meet with his lawyer. The city streets were slick with water, neon lights bleeding across the pavement. Inside the parking garage, Maya stepped out of the car and faced him. Tell me honestly, she said. Did you ever think this could happen? I prepared for opposition, he answered. Not betrayal. Your cousin hates you that much? She hates losing. The words cut the air between them. In the hallway outside the lawyer's office, Victoria Hale appeared as if conjured by anger itself. Her dark suit was immaculate, her expression colder than the rain outside. I see you both found time for damage control, she said, voice dripping with triumph. How touching. Adrian's shoulders stiffened. You crossed a line. Oh, please, she said with a dry laugh. Do not act surprised. You thought you could fool everyone with this little charity act? A fake marriage for a good headline? It is pathetic. Maya stepped forward before she could stop herself. You do not know anything about us. Victoria tilted her head. Oh, I know enough. The woman who drives Lyft at night, pretending to be someone she is not. The hero act will not last once the cameras move on. Adrian moved between them, voice low but sharp. Leave her out of this. Victoria smirked. Fine. But remember, truth has a way of surfacing whether you are ready or not. Then she walked away, heels clicking like a countdown. Silence swallowed the hallway. Maya felt the weight of the moment pressing on her chest. She is going to ruin you, she said quietly. Adrian looked at her, his expression unreadable. She might try. But she will not destroy what my sister built. When they finally returned home, the house no longer felt safe. The blue key on the counter glinted faintly under the kitchen light. Maya picked it up and placed it in Adrian's hand. Maybe you should hold this for now, she said. He looked at the key, then at her. Do you think this is the end? She swallowed hard. I think it is the test. Quote. Outside, thunder rolled across the sound, deep and distant. The first flash of lightning illuminated both of them standing in silence, two people caught between truth and perception, wondering which one would survive the storm. The day of the custody hearing arrived like a breaking wave. Reporters crowded outside the King County courthouse, umbrellas blooming like black flowers against the gray sky. Maya gripped the blue folder in her hands so tightly that her knuckles went white. Inside were copies of the marriage certificate, letters from the community center, and a photograph of Diego holding his family equals choice card. Every paper felt like armor. Adrian stood beside her, calm on the surface, but his shoulders were rigid. Do not speak unless the judge asks, he said quietly. They will twist every word. I am not afraid to tell the truth, she replied. He looked at her, eyes steady. I know. That is what worries them. Quote. Inside the courtroom, Victoria sat with her attorney, the picture of poise. Her voice carried when she greeted the press. We are here to ensure the welfare of a child, she said sweetly, not to watch a publicity spectacle. Maya's stomach churned. Across the aisle, Luna sat with a guardian, clutching a stuffed dolphin. Adrian's gaze softened when he saw her. The hearing began. Victoria's lawyer presented the leaked contract as Exhibit A. The words, "No emotional expectation," flashed across the screen like a wound. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Mr. Hale, the judge said, is this document authentic? Yes, Adrian answered. It began as a contract. Victoria's lawyer pounced. So, this so-called marriage was a calculated image maneuver to influence public sympathy before your custody case? Adrian met his stare. No, it was a mistake that led to something real. Laughter rippled among the reporters. Maya could feel eyes burning into her back. Then Adrian stood. Your Honor, before we continue, I have evidence to submit. He pulled a small wooden USB drive from his pocket, the same one Maya had once seen glinting on his desk. This contains a trust agreement signed by my sister Elena before her death. It transfers 51% of Harbor Lab's voting power to the Elena Trust, co-managed by me and Miss Maya Ortiz. A stunned murmur spread through the courtroom. Victoria shot to her feet. That is impossible. That trust was never executed. It was, Adrian interrupted, his voice firm. My sister believed in moral leadership. The trust activates if anyone in the company attempts to manipulate its mission for personal gain, including me. He placed the USB and a document on the clerk's desk. This was never about control. It was about protecting what she stood for. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Hale, are you aware that you may be surrendering your position as CEO by filing this? Adrian nodded. I am aware. He turned to face Maya. But if love and leadership mean anything, they cannot be built on lies. He took the paper contract from his folder, the marriage agreement, and tore it cleanly in half. Gasps echoed. Cameras clicked like thunder. Maya's breath caught as he held up another paper, the official marriage certificate, stamped and filed weeks earlier. This, he said, voice steady, was not a performance. I filed this the night she signed. Not for show, but because I already trusted her. The courtroom erupted. The judge called for order. Victoria sat frozen, her victory unraveling. Maya walked to him slowly, tears mixing with disbelief. She placed the blue key back in his palm. If we have a home, she whispered, let us go back to it. Quote, the judge's gavel fell, granting temporary custody to Adrian and confirming Maya's guardianship for Diego. Outside, the rain had stopped. The city lights glimmered off the wet pavement as the crowd pressed closer, shouting questions neither of them answered. They walked past the noise together, hand in hand, toward the waiting car, two people who had started with a contract and found something that no contract could define. 3 months later, the sun finally returned to Seattle. The air smelled of salt and cedar, the sky a clear, forgiving blue. Along the Duwamish River, workers gathered for the groundbreaking of Elena's Quay, a new floating neighborhood built for families who had once lived without stable homes. Bright banners fluttered in the breeze, and a small crowd of reporters stood ready. Maya stood at the podium, a blue scarf wrapped around her shoulders. Her voice carried across the water, calm but full of life. When I first came to this city, she said, I thought stability meant surviving. But sometimes, it means building a place where no one has to fight for the right to belong. Behind her, Adrian watched quietly. The sunlight glinted off his wedding band, a simple silver circle, the same color as the fountain pen she now used to sign the new community charter. The pen that once sealed their contract now sealed their promise to others. As the ceremony ended, Diego strummed his guitar on the small stage, his music soft and warm. Children played near the docks, their laughter echoing over the water. Luna ran toward Maya, clutching the familiar card with bright, uneven letters, Family equals choice. Maya knelt down and smiled. That is right, sweetheart. Family is what we choose and what we protect. Adrian approached, holding 2 paper cups of coffee. Still too sweet, he said, handing one to her. She laughed. Still too strong, she replied. They stood together, looking out at the line of floating houses. Each one had a small blue key painted near the doorway, a quiet symbol of the project's name. Do you ever think about that night? She asked softly. The parking lot, the rain. All the time, he said. It was the worst night of my life, and somehow, the beginning of the best one. Maya looked down at the key-shaped pendant resting against her collarbone. We did not plan this, she said. We just kept showing up. Adrian nodded. Maybe that is what love really is, showing up, even when it is inconvenient. The crowd began to disperse. Volunteers passed out programs. Children handed out small potted plants. A light breeze rippled the river, and the reflection of the new homes shimmered like glass in motion. Adrian turned to her, suddenly serious. "There is one more thing." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Maya's breath caught. "Adrian." He smiled faintly. "No contracts this time. No conditions. Just a question." He opened the box, revealing a simple ring, its band etched with a wave pattern like the water beneath their feet. "Maya Ortiz Hale," he said, voice steady but warm. "The contract expired 90 days ago. But if I asked you to choose again without reason, without obligation, would you still choose me?" Her eyes filled with tears, but her smile was steady. "I would," she whispered, "because now it is real." Quote, the crowd applauded as Adrian slipped the ring onto her finger. Luna and Diego cheered, their voices rising above the music. As the camera lights flickered, Maya leaned close and said, "This time, let us build something that no one can take away." Adrian squeezed her hand. "We already have." The shot lingered on the water blue keys glinting in sunlight, children laughing, and the two of them standing side by side, no longer bound by paper or fear, but by choice. "What does family mean to you, blood, choice, or something you build together?"